Right now in Washington, a handful of old photographs has become front-page story. Not because a photo by itself proves crime, but because it lands at exact moment when the US government is under legal pressure to open Epstein files, and people are already primed to assume cover-up. Here is what happened. On Friday, December 12th, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released the first batch of images they received from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. They say the committee is now sitting on more than 95,000 photos, and they started with 19. Later the same day, they put out dozens more. In 3 of the first photos, you see President Donald Trump. One is black and white. Trump smiling with women on both sides, their faces redacted. Another shows Trump standing next to Epstein. The third is less clear, but Trump is seated beside a woman, also redacted, his tie loosened. No dates, no captions, no context. Trump's response was blunt. Not a big deal. He says Epstein was everywhere in Palm Beach. Everybody has pictures with him. The White House then accused Democrats of cherry-picking and doing random redactions to build a narrative. Democrats answer, "We are redacting to protect survivors." They call it transparency, and they promise more photos in days and weeks ahead. And in the same release you see why this story is so combustible. Because it is not only Trump, it is also a parade of powerful names in same social universe. Bill Clinton, Steve Bannon, Bill Gates, Larry Summers, and others. Some images are just interiors of properties. Some are strange items from Epstein's world. It feels like someone opened a box in attic labeled "Do Not Touch." So you look at this and you ask, why now, and what is real objective? To understand this, you need to rewind to the part many people forget. The Epstein story in 2025 is not only about Epstein. It is about trust and about Trump's coalition. For years, Epstein became a kind of political ghost story in America. People told themselves there is secret client list, there is blackmail tape, there is deep state murder, there is always one more file that will finally expose the whole elite class. And Trump, as political operator, benefited from this mood. When public thinks system is rigged, they look for outsider who will smash the system. So he leaned into the idea that something is hidden. But then you win election, you take the wheel, and suddenly your supporters say, "Okay, now open the safe. Show us what is inside." This is where it started to bite him. In early July, the Justice Department and FBI published a memo describing an exhaustive review of what they hold on Epstein. The memo says they found no incriminating client list. They say they found no credible evidence of blackmail. And they say they found no basis to investigate uncharged third parties. They also explain why so much cannot simply be dumped online. They say the holdings include enormous amount of sensitive material, including imagery of victims and illegal child sexual abuse material, and much of it is sealed by courts to protect victims. They even go into the suicide question. The memo says investigators concluded Epstein died by suicide in 2019, consistent with the medical examiner and the DOJ Inspector General. And they cite video review as part of that conclusion. This memo was meant to close door on fantasies. Instead, it poured gasoline on anger. Because months earlier, Attorney General Pam Bondi had been talking very differently, hinting publicly there were big revelations coming. When the official conclusion arrived, and it was basically no secret list, no Hollywood ending, many pro-Trump influencers attacked the administration for lying or backtracking. And here is what is important. The political damage was not mainly coming from Democrats. It was coming from Trump's own side, from people who believed they were promised a purge of the system. Polling reflected this fracture. In July, a Reuters Ipsos poll found most Americans believed the government was hiding details about Epstein's clients, and Trump's approval on the issue was extremely low, even among Republicans. By mid-December, Reuters Ipsos still found only about half of Republicans approved of Trump's handling of Epstein, far below his usual numbers with his party. So now you have pressure from three directions at once. 1. The public demands disclosure. 2. Victims and advocates demand accountability, but also privacy and protection. 3. Lawyers and investigators know that a raw dump can expose victims again and can destroy due process for people who may be innocent. This is why Congress moved. In November, lawmakers passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and Trump signed it. The law requires the Justice Department to publish all unclassified Epstein-related records in a searchable, downloadable format within 30 days. That puts the main deadline around December 19th. But the law also recognizes reality. It allows redactions to protect victims' identities and private information. It bars release of child sexual abuse imagery. And it allows temporary withholding if release would jeopardize an active investigation or prosecution. At the same time, the law makes a sharp point. Records should not be withheld or redacted just because release would embarrass a public figure or cause reputational harm. In other words, being famous is not supposed to be a shield. So now everyone is staring at the calendar. And once deadline gets close, the legal system starts moving too. Federal judges in New York and Florida have been unsealing some grand jury and court materials connected to Epstein and to Ghislaine Maxwell, citing the new transparency law. But judges are also tempering expectations. One judge noted the grand jury material can be limited and hearsay heavy. Another judge, in Maxwell-related records, stressed that the material did not identify any clients and did not name other people as having sexual contact with minors. This is not Hollywood script. It is often bureaucratic and narrow. Now, come back to those photos released on December 12th. What are Oversight Democrats doing? They are trying to shape narrative before December 19th. If you drop a big batch of documents on public with no framing, the first interpretation becomes reality. So politicians want to frame first. They want to tell public, look, here is the circle. Here is proximity. Here is who was around him. Republicans answer, this is selective, partisan, a smear. They say Democrats are weaponizing redactions and releasing without context. And the White House says the administration has done more for victims than Democrats ever did. This is why you see both sides use same word, transparency, while pulling in opposite direction. Now let me be careful, because people always want me to say more than evidence allows. A photo of Trump with Epstein does not prove Trump participated in Epstein's crimes. Full stop. Social scenes in Palm Beach in the 1990s and early 2000s had many people passing through, and proximity is not the same as guilt. But also, dismissing these images as meaningless misses how politics actually works. Politics is not courtroom with rules of evidence. Politics is a trust market. And in trust market, association is like smoke smell on your jacket. Even if you did not start fire, people notice you walked through burning building. That is what these photos are doing. They remind public, Trump and Epstein did share oxygen at parties. So now, in eyes of many Americans, Trump does not get benefit of doubt on transparency. There is also a moral hazard here. When you spend years encouraging your supporters to believe in hidden cabals, you cannot suddenly be shocked when they assume you are part of cover-up the moment you control the files. Suspicion is like wild dog. You do not keep it on leash forever. So what happens next, practically? On or around December 19th, Justice Department has to release unclassified Epstein records, but with significant redactions. The package can include agent reports, interview transcripts, photographs, and evidence lists, travel logs, flight logs, the autopsy report, and internal communications about whom to charge or investigate. Some of this may already be public from past litigation and past reporting. Some may be new. But there are guardrails. Victim identifying information must be protected. Any illegal sexual abuse imagery must be withheld. And if DOJ claims active investigation, it can hold some pieces temporarily, but it has to justify what it is doing. So the most likely outcome is not one dramatic list that destroys half of Washington. The July Memo says the DOJ found no such list. Courts are signaling that grand jury material may not contain what conspiracy culture expects. The public may still get a lot of names, a lot of embarrassing contacts, a lot of reminders about who moved in Epstein's world. But that is different from criminal proof. And this is where the real battle is. The fight is not only what is inside the files. The fight is whether Americans will trust the process that decides what is shown, what is redacted, and why. If DOJ releases heavily redacted documents, Democrats will say, cover up. If DOJ releases huge volume with many names, Republicans will say, witch hunt. If DOJ uses the active investigation carve-out broadly, people on all sides will assume it is excuse. And through all of this, the people most at risk of being harmed again are the victims, whose private details are woven throughout the evidence. So, if you want to watch this story like adult, focus on three things, not on memes. First, what exactly gets released by December 19th and in what format? Searchable, downloadable as law requires, or a messy PDF dump designed to frustrate? Second, what is redacted and what is withheld, and whether the government explains it in a specific narrow way or hides behind vague language. Third, whether the public conversation keeps center on accountability and victim protection, or turns into partisan blood sport where victims become just backdrop. The photos of Trump are spark, not verdict. They are a reminder that Epstein's real power was not only money or blackmail fantasy, it was access. He built a world where powerful people treated him like doorway to something. And now, years later, the country is trying to tear down that doorway without crushing the people he already harmed. That is hard, slow, ugly work. And if we are honest, it is the kind of work modern politics is worst at doing.